Hello and welcome. How is the Ukrainian counteroffensive going to continue now as the first parts of the Surovikin line are breached? We'll talk about this according to some interviews from Ukrainian commanders in this video. In an interview with The Guardian that I have here, I'm going to link it to you in the comment section. The Ukrainian commander of the Tavrisk group, which is basically the group responsible of the Ukrainian armed forces that is responsible for this area, Brigadier General Oleksandr Tarnavsky said that the first defensive line has been breached. This is obviously a question of interpretation that we can take here, where you take the first defensive line. In the past, we talked about up to 5 defensive lines that are being constructed. In the end, is this the first defensive line? Is this the first? Is this the second? And this the third? As you can see, it's not that easy to decipher, but we do know that the Ukrainians have definitely breached the defensive lines here and are at the outskirts of Verbove. There were some rumors yesterday being spread around that the Ukrainians have advanced much further than this. I can unfortunately not confirm this in any way as of now. But in his interview, he said that the Ukrainians are now expecting faster advances, as any of the further lines, the lines further down the road towards the sea, are weaker than the one they already breached. 60% of the time and the resources the Russians spent in fortifications and fortifying the southern areas were spent on this first line, according to him. Only 20% were used of the effort on the 2 consecutive lines each, which obviously means they should be weaker by a factor of 3. They also another comment was from the spokesperson of that same unit, of that same organization, of the Tavrisk group, Alexander Stupun, who talked about it here. And we have there, he said, the minefields were massive, insanely big, and they forced them to. The artillery, the Russian artillery and the Russian Air Force forced the Ukrainians to only clear them at night. They would not be able to do it during the day, and that took them insane amount of time. They were also only able to clear small trails through the minefields, which forced them to basically go through predetermined routes, which is more or less according to the Russian intentions. So this allowed the Russians to strike them easier, as the Ukrainians were not able to widen their front and thus were coming at predetermined routes. This, though, is over now, at least to a certain degree. The Ukrainians are thus using more vehicles again, as the minefields are less of a threat now. But they also both say that minefields will continue to be a threat, only they do not expect them to be as massive as before. Tarnavsky, the commander of the Tavris group, said that the Russians have lost the majority, that the Russians are losing their troops in high numbers. He talks that the now how fast they will be able to continue will obviously depend on the Russian reinforcements. We talked that 2 VDV units have recently been redeployed to this area, both of them laterally though, so neither of them was fresh out of reserve. They were just moved along the front line, which is a clear sign of the Russians running out of reserves. How long those will be able to hold the Ukrainians back is undetermined yet. Tarnavsky is saying that the Russians are going to lose their better personnel sooner or later, but he admits that Ukraine is also suffering dearly. The best, the strongest, and the best are also falling. So generally, the Ukrainians are optimistic that they basically had the biggest obstacle have the biggest obstacle behind it, but they do not assume that this is an actual breakthrough according to the US Army definition. There are still units in front of them. They are nowhere close to being able to breach through, to have an exploitation force that is able to rush through the sea or anything like this. But they think that from now on it's going to be easier. And as we've seen in the past few weeks, it has the roughly 2 weeks, more or less, the advance has been faster. The advance from the line of Robotine here into the fortification lines here has been much faster than the equal distance from the former front line to the outskirts of Robotine, and all of this shows us that the Ukrainians can have some reason to be optimistic, especially as additional weaponry arrives. For instance, the Leopard 1s that were promised are now arriving in Ukraine, as well as the M1 Abrams. That's already it from me for now. So basically, Ukraine is optimistic. They said we will be able to advance further south fairly soon. We should have it gradually easier over time, but they admit that it's still difficult and that they still suffer losses. That's it from me for now. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button and leave a comment where you think the Ukrainian counteroffensive will accumulate. If you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. And for all of those, most of my viewers should not be surprised that I'm also interested in firearms, which basically comes with the job if you're interested and working with military topics for several decades. So I've started a YouTube channel about firearms, not necessarily in a direct connection with this channel, but this will allow me to keep the firearm topic A, do videos about it, and B, keep it out of this channel. So if you're interested in it, I would like to invite you to subscribe to Hoplophile, my channel that is up here, where we will do gun content there in case you might be interested. That's already it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.